It's the Town Hall Building Committee, December 20th, just shy of Christmas. So about 5:03 p.m. We'll do the roll call. If you'd say your full name and here when I say your first name, that'd be great. Sam?
Sam Wakeman here.
Mark?
Cameron here.
Garrett?
Garrett Lubitz here.
Josiah?
Stevenson here.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Coffey here.
And Phil Lear here. Thank you very much. We've got quite a bit of stuff to cover. I know, John, you got to jump off, and we'd like to go over this first thing on the pre-construction services on the agenda. And it sounds like we should have an explanation and decide tonight. Is that correct?
You don't need to decide tonight, but you should decide soon. So let me kind of jump in if you're good. So as a result of some of the prior meetings, I've had some conversations with some folks on the committee, specifically Mark, where we're talking about the idea of, would this project benefit from CM at risk? Okay, and well, what's, obviously those of us that work in the business understand right what that means right away. But obviously, we need to kind of fill you all in on that. Basically, there's two main, and I've got a brief presentation, but kind of the 30,000 foot view before I dive into it is most public projects up until about 15 years ago were design, bid, build. Design the whole thing, bid it to a contractor, build it. Okay, you're basically buying the building for a price. Since that time, when the construction reform laws came in, there was more and more focus being given towards construction management at risk. Well, what is that? Basically, that's a process where you hire your contractor early. Hire them now, okay? And they come in and they participate in the later stages of the design. They help you with things like value engineering, with things like phasing. And most importantly, in this marketplace, they help you with estimates because, as it stands right now, when the last estimate gets done, it'll be done by Phil's estimator. And then maybe we're going to have our estimator look at it. And you're going to have two estimators kind of talking about what they see and think is going on in the marketplace. Well, what would happen is if we hired a CM, basically they would do the last estimate, and they're the ones who are going to build a job for you. So basically, you've got the estimating department of the CM, your builder, getting in there and digging in. So that's kind of the biggest difference, or biggest positive that I see, I should say, in this. But let me kind of run through. I've got a quick set of slides here, kind of take you through it. Okay, oh, that's not it. Share.
That's it, John.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so just to kind of hit a couple of things again. Delivery methods of projects. How do we build projects? Well, there's four basic ways that are built. Projects are built, only three of which you really hear about around here, and primarily two of them that are used. First one we just talked about, design, bid, build. That's a different design team, different builder, owner, and it all gets bid for a lump sum. Construction management at risk. And again, design, bid, build, that's under the purview of Mass General Law, Chapter 149. CM at risk is Mass General Law, Chapter 149A. Again, where you hire the professional services of a builder, your builder, who's going to do the job early in the process. Third manner is design build, okay? And that's where you hire a team you hire one person, hire one entity to design, build your project. Sometimes modular projects are built that way. Hire a modular builder, and then the modular builder actually finishes the design. We don't see vertical public projects built that way, but some of you may say, what is design build? And that's one of them. And then one of the other is construction management is agency. And that's more of what we are, where you can see, where you see them as agent. Okay, we're not actually the builder, but it is sometimes defined as one of the project delivery methods. So, basically CM at risk, during the 70s, there were GCs looking to provide services as part of teams, and adding value to the end product of a project. And that's kind of where CM at risk started. Some highlights of CM at risk, as I said, set forth by Mass General Law, Chapter 149A. Sorry, I should put a little A there. Your CM provides design phase and pre-construction services. The CM at risk, who becomes your builder of the project, you're essentially your contractor, gives the estimates that are being provided. And then those estimates can be compared and reconciled to the designer's estimates. Another big feature of CM at risk, it's open book accounting. Okay, with design bid build, you see the sub bids. Okay, there's about 16 or 18 of them, depending on the scope of the project. Those bids get given to the GCs, and you get one number on bid day. As opposed to at CM at risk, as you watch the bid get built, every single bid package and trade package comes to you as an owner with a recommendation. You get to see it. Also at CM at risk, it allows for early release packages. So if for some reason we decided, hey, it would be great to get out there and get the abatement started in the existing addition or the building, you have the ability to phase a project a little bit differently through the CM. There may be some advantages with the CM, for the temporary space and the moving. Again, all things that would need to be fleshed out, but we don't, we would need to work on that. And then ultimately, the CM gives you a guaranteed maximum price. So basically, you hire them for pre-construction services, and you give them a series of amendments that builds up their base contract to what's called the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. And that you equate that number basically to the same thing as you would get on bid day from a design bid build general contractor. So design bid build, basically when you're doing a design bid build job, you're looking for the lowest possible price to perform those things that are absolutely required by the drawings and specs and nothing more. Okay, so it's your bidding what's on the paper. And it's a little bit different. This is Mass General Law, Chapter 149, not 149A. This is the historical approach you see on a lot of municipal projects, specifically vertical projects. The project's completely designed by the designer. Those 100% construction documents become the bid docs for the project. Once the plans are completed, bids are solicited from the filed subbid and then the GCs, and the project is awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. There are no negotiations. A lot of times folks will say, well, can we go back and talk to them about that electrical number? Nope, you can't. Basically, the one number on bid day is what you are stuck with having to write the contract for. So the big difference is, with CM at risk, you're hiring a professional service firm which builds buildings. For design bid build, you're purchasing a building in accordance with detailed plans and specs. So that's the subtle nuance between them. In one, you're hiring a partner to work you through the end of the services design, and the other, you're purchasing the building for a price. Again, a couple of, just to see the comparison of bullets. Again, CM at risk, help you during the design. You can start before the design's completed. Qualifications-based selection with a fee proposal. You can negotiate pieces of the CM at risk price. Not all of them. Some of them are fixed when you bid the fee. And then the trade bidders, those are fixed. But then for the non-trade subcontractors, as an example, we talk about electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Those are trade contractors. Those are the ones who you're not allowed really to have any sort of any negotiating. But however, when it's the non-trade subs such as drywall or carpentry or site, the GC is allowed to go back and do kind of best and final. This is after they have a job. So you're allowed to solicit comments, to go back and do a scope review of those bid packages with them, and actually have some negotiation back and forth with the lowest firm. For design bid build, there are no design phase services. The design's finished. It's the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. Again, a lump sum payment. Bottom line is some projects are sufficiently simple enough that the cost savings with design bid build outweigh the value added services of CM at risk. And CM at risk would usually, when you talk to the IG, they would tell you, more appropriate for more challenging projects with more challenging logistics or schedules or phasing, something that you really are, you're paying for the expertise of a little bit of a higher level builder, I would say. And in this case, you say, well, wait a minute, is our project really that challenging? I think again, as I said already, in my mind, the biggest thing here, and then we'll open it up to you guys, is cost. The ability of having the cost from an actual builder is a very interesting idea as part of this. And you say, well, what are the premiums that are out there, for CM at risk? General conditions, there's a little bit more staff on the job. It could be about a percentage point. The CM's fee, sometimes, you'll see this is what gets bid early on. If you proceed down the road of CM at risk, basically we tell them, okay, the job's going to be, let's say, 18 months. They give you a price for their general conditions, the cost to manage the work, and they give you their fee. And they give it to you up front. So you know whether they're putting 1.5% on the job or 3% or 5%. Also in the CM at risk, they'll carry a CM contingency within the GMP. This is a contingency that's carried, and at the end of the day, if you don't use it, you get it back. So this is one of the reasons why there is some additional upfront cost using a CM, but a well-run project, you can get a good chunk of that, or you can get a chunk of that returned. You could make an argument that they have better non-trade subcontractors. The CMs that are out there don't go to the low bid guys all the time. They go to the people they have relationships with. So at times you can end up, paying a little bit more for the non-trade contractors they have. So that whole initial cost premium, you use CM at risk is between 5 and 6%. Again, the focus is on the word initial. What the trick is at the end of the job, did you save it? Did you save money? On the Littleton job we just did, we were able to, every change that came up, utilize the CM contingency that was within the GMP, so that project, a $12 million job, did not touch the external $600,000 contingency for a penny, because we were able to do it in-house, and they finished a month early. So really was a good experience. If you decide you want to go this way, we have to apply to the Inspector General's office. There's a number of things, and you don't need to absorb all of this right now. Basically, though, we would need authorization from the governing body, the building committee, to say, we want to go ahead with this. That's the first thing you have to do. From there, then I have to provide to you plans and procedures that this group would have to vote on about the selection of a CM, a lot of boilerplate information, a lot of stuff that's listed right in the law, but I can get that for you. It has to be a fair process. The project has to be over $5 million. And we have to basically, this group has to basically think, yes, this is the right mode for the project. So Carolyn's got a question. I've only got one more slide. Do you want to wait? Okay. And then what does it mean? First and foremost, what would we have to do? You would have to vote to proceed, and I would put together an application for the town. It's about a month turnaround to submit and get a response back. I could probably have it done inside of a week, but we would need sign off from the committee on a couple of items that obviously aren't done yet, basically about those procedures we talked to you about. We would also need sign off from town council, who would need to sign a certification that this application will have been prepared and submitted in accordance with Chapter 149A. Again, it's a lot of check boxes. And just as a quick FYI, the project I just referenced about the library that was successful, that was with Johnson Roberts as well. So we both just worked on that project with a CM called Commodore Builders. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions. I know it's a ton of info, but wanted to get it out there because I know there had been some questions about could we, should we, and the answer is could you, yes, should you, maybe. But if you're going to, there's a value play with this here. You want them on board before the design's finished. Is there a value to bringing them on when it's done? Yeah, there's still a value there because of the expertise of the firm, but you really want them to have a crack at the design and have a look through it, at least at the end of the process. If we had, it would be better if they were on now, but you can still bring them on later before we're finished. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions. Carolyn?
I had two questions. One is, it sounds like the sooner the better, obviously. And I think it also sounds like if town council has to sign off on it and everything, that this is something that Board of Selectmen would have to be advised of and approve of as well. Correct? Michelle? Do we know?
I think that it would be in the purview of this committee. I did speak to Chris about the additional funding that would be necessary to bring on the CM, and we'll chat about it a little bit more. But he thinks if there's true value to the committee, then it's something that we should move forward on.
And to quantify that for the committee, the dollars we're talking about, Chris having to look for, most, I think on the job in Littleton that Phil and I were involved in, the process for the design was roughly the same place where Littleton said, no, we're going CM at risk. So they came in kind of at the end of DD, right at the beginning of CD, or even a little bit further, which is where they would come in here. And, pre-construction services ran us about $60,000. So somewhere between 50 and 100. 100 is probably a good number. Do I think you'll use that? No. Do you advertise that? Not necessarily either. You know what I mean? So I think if folks know it's a short window of time, let's face it, pre-con services are kind of a loss leader a little bit for these firms. And the shorter the time that they're involved with us, the smaller that number would be. So it's all about identifying our calendar for them, our schedule, so that they understand, okay, if I'm going to give you a project team to help you through this, what's the level of effort? 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, and then their fee is kind of based on that.
One of the things that you mentioned with the CM at risk was that you can negotiate prices. Does that mean they can come back to you as well? Like in this market with some fluctuating prices, can they come back and say,
it's a really excellent price.
We need to charge you more?
No, it's a really excellent question. And what we're finding is a lot of this becomes how good and how tight is your contract. So basically, let's say we go ahead with this. The first thing is the application. The application is to ask the state, can we do this? And I've never been involved in a job where they've said no. Okay, so the answer is you're going to get a yes. So what I would say is we wouldn't wait to start the next thing, which is a request for qualifications. In that process, we would also want to finalize a contract for the CM so they see what they're signing ultimately. And it's that contract we would want to work really closely with council to insulate us as best we could for some of these unknowns, for kind of this crazy market fluctuation, so that, in the design bid build world or the CM at risk world, it all comes down to how the contract is written for, can they come back to you for added costs? CM at risk, maybe they can, maybe they can't, depending on how it's written. Design bid build, maybe they can, maybe they can't too. Same thing. It can be a claim, can be an outright claim that, hey, this now cost me more than when I bid this a year ago, and we're fighting some of those claims today on projects. So what I would say is, short answer, you would try to write a contract so that you would be protected from those kind of fluctuations that are out there. And the other thing is, when you do a guaranteed maximum price kind of setup like this, you also give them the ability to say, listen, we understand that there's fluctuations, say, in the roofing market. We're going to give you an allowance to put monies in there if you need them, as opposed to the sub just building in, oh boy, I might get hammered on this. I'm going to build $100,000 into the roof price and blow the estimate because I want to be protected just in case. CM at risk, instead, you can set up a roofing allowance and say, hey, if we have cost escalations or concerns about that, we build that in kind of below the line so that we can get truer numbers. You don't have the ability for those allowances and those, that itemization of things in the design bid build delivery method. It's kind of the one number, you get it, you live with it. Whereas the GMP is pages and pages long, full of assumptions and clarifications. And we have the ability to kind of carve out some of those concerns and put them in individual boxes. And say, okay, if we have an issue with this, we've got some money set aside for it. And it helps you kind of just with overall budget management as well along the way.
Is it fair to sum it up by saying you get value from involving them because you get perhaps truer cost estimates, but you're paying for that value by paying for their services? Is there more to it than that, or is it or are there downsides that, you know, because I felt most of what you said tonight was very positive toward.
Yeah, really the downside is it's a little bit of a misnomer in the name, and I'll let Mark chime in on this a little bit too because he lives it. You know, it's kind of CM at no risk for the builder, because at the end of the day, we have those contingencies. They have a lot of those outs, but I think the benefit of having the professional services and the partnering is a little bit better than the, you know, who we might get to build this. The other thing too is through this process, you get to actually interview the people that are going to build your project. You get to meet the superintendent. You don't get that in pre-qualification. Okay, we're going to pre-qualify under design bid build. We're going to get all the paperwork. Under CM at risk, you get to meet and interview. Who is your superintendent? Who is your PM? What is your approach? How are you going to handle this? There gets to be an interview phase of this that you don't get under design bid build. So, you know, it's part of the it's one of the other pluses. You actually get to meet the team that is going to come out there and be part of this, as opposed to just reading the paperwork. Under the pre-qual, you'll get it too, but you'll never get to meet them and understand what their approach is until after they're awarded the job.
Thank you.
Mark had your hand up.
Yeah, and just to kind of shed some light on what Carolyn said in terms of the changes, the adds in both contract delivery methods with things like COVID that took effect, right? That have maybe had a whole bunch of implications in terms of PPE, how sites were managed, and all the costs that went along with that. In both situations, there's the opportunity for those contractors to get money, whether it's outside the budget in the design bid build delivery, or in the CM at risk GMP delivery. Maybe the GMP comes out of contingency, but ultimately it wouldn't have been a part of the original budget, as well as delays, you know, as we were all shut down for several months. Not necessarily for the time down, although that is a conversation, but you know, rate escalations. If the project is delayed 6 months, in both situations, I think it's just worth noting that just because the GMP delivery method is selected doesn't mean that some of these costs don't exist. It just means that they may be funded from within the budget, out of contingency or allowances. John, I don't know if you had any recent history there of during the COVID times there of how those costs were.
So I will tell you right now that our contracts who were written pretty well. I mean, there's this whole thing with COVID costs, direct costs were paid for, delay costs have not been paid for, escalation costs have not been paid for. There's a huge, nobody wants to be the first person to pay for an escalation claim over these past 18 months on these jobs, because when one gets paid, there could be, you know, you're setting precedent. I mean, COVID's unprecedented, let's face it, you know, and the things that are happening in the marketplace with costs and those sort of things, unprecedented. But we have not allowed any cost escalation claims yet on any of our projects. And we've probably had about 7 or 8 of them at this point, a few by some subcontractors in common who shall remain nameless. But, you know, short of that, I mean, if you write a good, solid contract, write a good, solid contract. So that's, you know, to my point earlier of, as you do the application and wait for it for the state, you don't wait. If you think you're going to go down this road, it doesn't take a lot of time to get a contract, talk to council that has construction experience, or someone in town who's got construction experience, like Mr. Hillman, who's, our counsel for another couple of other towns, someone who understands the language of what we're trying to achieve with that. And you can insulate yourself. I mean, at a certain point, you have to be fair. But, contract's a contract. So. And
then, part of that the GMP CM at risk delivery method is the contractor is helping to identify any gaps that maybe not shown on the prints, and helping on, whether it be means and methods or some dot that isn't necessarily there. And they work to help identify any of those potential areas and put money in the budget to help solve and take care of those items, where in a design bid build method, if it's not on the paper, they don't own it. So it's kind of, it can be later a little bit of what's on the drawings and what's not.
Steve?
Yeah, a couple things, John. Just want to be clear on the premium cost for this. Your slide had a 5 to 6% premium on that. If that's based on an $11 million construction budget, that's $550,000. Correct?
Yep.
So it's not 60,000 or 100. It's a lot more. The other thing, and we're actually a little higher, our construction, I just rounded down to 11 million based on our recent estimates. The other thing too is there is a schedule delay. We're trying to meet a May 2nd town meeting. I don't know whether this fits.
Yeah, it would be aggressive for sure, because let's say it takes a month to get an approval from the OG's office, excuse me. You would look at putting out an RFQ for CMs February 1st. It would take about a month to get them on board, a month to go through that process of getting them in, then getting proposals, then doing interviews. So you would have them in March. They would be in as part of this in March. So it is a very tight time frame to be able to have a CM on board to get all the pre-quals done. The pre-qual process is essentially the same when it comes to you hear me use the terms filed subbidders and trade contractors. They're essentially the same thing. The same scopes of work that are filed subbidders under the design bid build delivery method are the same group that are the trade contractors for CM at risk. The difference between the two delivery methods are the non-trade contractors that under design bid build, you never participate in any part of their procurement. That's purely up to the GC. However, under CM at risk, you are invited into the procurement process. And as the owner, you see every single trade. You see everything that's bought for the job. You see every price. And you see the buyout and the scope and everything that's involved with that. Whereas under design bid build, you see those bids on the bid day 2 weeks before the GC bid is due. And then you see the GC bid, and that's it. You never see anything else behind the curtain. You then see a schedule of values that's dozens of pages of breakdown of how that $12 million or $13 million is broken out, but you never get to see contracts, bids, scopes, anything like that. You just, as the owner, say, I get everything that's in these plans and specs for that amount. So that's the.
Stuart, you have some?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, at this point, we're at about 75% complete on the construction documents. So by the time the construction manager comes on board, we'll be done. Now, having said that, we still like the construction management process. And I don't think that this is probably all that different even than it was in Littleton. It just gives us a little more flexibility even after the fact to go back and look at some value engineering things. It's just really hard to do if you're in a real bid situation. But I just want people to understand we're pretty far down the road with the construction documents at this point.
Cool, thank you. Michelle, did you have some?
So I guess the question I have is, with the uncertainty in supply chain and things of that nature, would CM help us in this process? And I know we're all going towards this May 2nd date, but if there is true value in the CM at risk model, do we rush towards that May 2nd date when in fact we'd get more value if we kind of slowed the process a little bit and went into our fall town meeting? Just some questions for everyone.
You have to be careful in that situation that, if escalation is, 4% a year, even at these inflated prices, okay, the market where it is, like forget about what got it to that point, but things always go up. If you use 4 or 5%, waiting 6 months to go from May to October, November is another 2%, 3%. So it becomes a value of adding the CM to find a way to maybe help us save money, but yet by waiting, we've eaten up some of that. So
you also run into breaking ground at the wrong time of year, and potential delays and extra costs for winter builds.
So I understand that, but as far as supply chain, if there's a CM on board, don't we have the opportunity to kind of procure items prior to and secure? I'm more worried about supply chain right now.
So it's a great question, but to Stu's point, I think the issue here is timing wise. Okay, timing wise. What, as an example, well, forget about our project for a minute. I will tell you that in other cases, on other jobs where we have CMs right now, not only are we doing early bid packages for things like site and steel. So the job, so what happens is the design is not quite done, but let's get a jump on site package so we can start digging and getting ready for foundations, and steel so we can get it ordered. CM at risk is allowing us to do early bid packages for roofing, because rubber roofing right now is 10, 12 months out. It's unheard of. It used to be stuff you could get off the shelf, but you can't find it anymore. So it gives you that kind of flexibility. I don't know if we don't necessarily have that issue here with a shingled roof. But yes, it does give you that ability that if there's something that, we should call out earlier, it's fine. Nothing prevents you as the owner from buying something sooner. The issue is if there's something though that we come up with in the end of this design process, it's probably easier to add it to a CM's contract than for you to buy it and then have to give it to the GC later on. It all depends. The devil's in the details with that one. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a crate full of projectors that might not be available, or are we talking about some sort of unit that ties into the, like a generator that ties into the electrical and the plumbing and all sorts of other parts of the building? That's a hard one you end up with that who owns it if there's an issue kind of situation. You may definitely save money doing it sooner. But I think to Stu's point, we're running towards the end here. A decision on this would have been better 2 months ago. But again, weren't really, everyone's a great Monday morning QB, just read the sports page, we're just in a tougher situation right now to squeeze that value out of it. To your point, but the good point here is that if your choice was to wait, okay. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, guys, the amount of money will take from me to do the application. I don't think you need 100% on this right now, as long as I get the process started. And as we kind of dig through this a little bit more, I know there's a lot of other stuff to go through tonight. I can start that, and we can meet again, and you can vote for me to submit that, and we can go ahead and do that in a separate piece. There'll be some pieces I'm going to give to Michelle that we will need to vote on. Do it all at once in a future meeting right after the holidays. Won't take me a ton to actually put it together, and we can have a little more thought on this and maybe look at the schedule a little bit better and see where that would play out. But this was the first opportunity we had to kind of bring this up for discussion. So
one thing I want to just point out on the design bid build scenario, which we've been going, that's the path we've been going down originally. Per the draft schedule that I put out, if it passes at a May town meeting, we'd be awarding the contract roughly, the 9th of May. And what we've been talking to contractors about recently is any of your potential long lead items, like roofing, as John mentioned, and a few other things. That's the things that they should be concentrating on first, as far as getting those submittals in and getting those items released. Otherwise, if we're waiting for the CM to get on board and pushing this off till fall, we're actually releasing packages. Even though we're saying they're early packages, we're probably releasing them later than we would if we went with just a low bid scenario, just based on our schedule right now.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think I think the timing here is tight for this. So it becomes a question of who's going to bid it when we pre-qualify, who's the cast of characters, and hopefully there's a good, I don't want to misconstrue, can you get a good GC? Absolutely. Sure. Can you get a more difficult one? Absolutely. Sure. With the CM at risk piece, you have the ability to interview and have a really good feel about the person you choose, or the people, I should say, you choose, because it's quals and price. So if we had that all around, if we had that in the design bid build world of things, why would we do CM at risk? I think because if you got a chance to meet everybody and the team members and all of that and know who who it was going to be, that's one of the big pluses in my mind for doing it the other way. I don't know if you have time to do it, though, to Steve's point, because there will be some manner of impact to the schedule. And then if there's no impact, then we still can pull it off by then. The question is, what value did you gain by having that CM on board for a month? Was it worth it? That's the question.
And we're going to have to pre-qualify anyways because of the amount of the construction. You can always do it if it's under 10 million, but we're over 10. So it's not completely a blind.
It's not blind. It's really, no, you're absolutely right. The only ability you have is if somebody was really terrible at kicking them out. If someone was mediocre and passable, that's not good enough. But
I have someone in mind that we don't want that may apply on this. And
good.
Yes. Again, shall remain nameless, but he's off the list.
So what's the best way to proceed with this, John? Do you want to put something together for us that we can look at?
Listen, I want to, so if I'm going to proceed with this application, just to get it in, okay, because to do that and see it, then Steve and I can work on how the timing works or doesn't work. What I will need is from a few of you on the committee, especially Mark, who's in the business, maybe Josiah, resume of people, like name and experience. And I can say it's a little blurb, maybe a third of a page of your experience with CM, because the IG wants to confirm that there are members of the committee, of the OPM, and of the design team that all have experience with that. Then separately, I've got basically some plans and procedures of how the CM at risk process goes, largely right out of Chapter 149A, which we would need to review as a committee and approve. And once that's approved, I would need counsel with acknowledgement through, certified meeting minutes that this was accepted. They would need to stamp on, there's a little certification page they have to put their John Hancock on, and that has to be part of it. So, Phil, none of, putting off an official go or no go on this is fine. I mean, as I said, I think I can go through the process and get most of it done via email, but we would need to meet back probably right after the holidays are over the following week and come to a decision of, submit, not submit, get it stamped off, whatever the process is going to be.
Okay,
and
so
any council that's any council that's done this before, this is not new territory. You know what I mean? This is, I don't want to say boilerplate, but it's pretty standard stuff. They're going to go and look at the 149A and check off to make sure I've done all the things that are in all the check boxes. So it's not like it's not hugely heavy lifting for them. So it's not like they need a ton of time to go through it.
So I guess two things. What do you need from us to start that? And the second question is it really going to cost us another $500,000 to bring a CM at risk on board?
So I will tell you that at the early entry, when you get the GMP, after you add in the pre-construction services, the answer is yes. The question is, the initial phases, because you don't know how it performs until the end of the job. So as an example, there'll be of that 5%, there'll be a 2% of that 5, meaning the remaining 3, 2% of that will be a CM contingency. It'll be money within the GMP, within your bid price, essentially, that if it doesn't get spent, it's yours. So until the job is over, you don't know how much of it gets spent. So up front, it's more expensive. But you could, at the end of the day, the GMP could be at $12,300,000, and the final bill for you is $12,200,000. There's $100,000 that comes back as a credit change order to Cohasset. So at the end of the day, one of those points came back, and it wasn't 5% more, it was 4% more. So that's the problem with this. And then, as you try to look at the nuances of job to job to job with this, some owners, take money back from the CM contingency and use it for furniture. They use it for other things. So it's not, is it more expensive out the door? Yes. Is it always more expensive at the end? Harder question to answer. So is it a more professional experience than with some of the people like the folks Steve and I shall not name? Absolutely. I've never had it's a much more professional situation, and you're paying for the more overhead. I mean, these people all have every level of staff member covered, from QA, QC to superintendents to procurement, accounting, but you're paying for it. You know what I mean? And you get to meet and understand what's in that fee from them for those costs. But you're buying a more, professional is the wrong word, but I'm going to use it. Buying a more professional group. Doesn't mean there aren't GCs that can do it.
Yeah.
But I've never had, knock on wood so far, I've never had I've never been in a situation where I've said, boy, I'm not going to recommend that CM on the next job.
Certainly, this situation would make our group look a lot better. You get into a GC where you run into situations you don't have the say in the project as it's going on. Where in this situation you would. I don't.
We've built.
I don't know how to feel about the cost of it.
Yeah, we've built plenty of stuff, design, bid, build, with contractors who have been deemed difficult, and it's been fine. It's been fine. Have we had a few that there have been issues? Yeah. Yep. We have. Some that have been involved in lawsuits. Yep. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you deal with, I guess my thought is, let this go a little bit further. Let me start the application. You have some VE discussions to have and talk through. Let me talk to a CM, one of the folks I'll tell you who I'm going to talk to. I'll talk to Commodore and just give them the facts on this and say, what do you think? And get some feedback from a CM and see what their thoughts are on this, on the value of doing it. Of course, they want to work. They're not going to say no, but I'd be interested to hear, okay, what's your value play on this? If this is the schedule right now and this is what we're trying to do, and see what they say. And that feedback could be valuable.
So you're doing research. We don't have to give you permission.
No, I don't think you have to vote. I'm going to do the application anyway, because you're going to need to vote to submit it. You don't need to vote for me to do it. You need to vote to submit it.
That sounds great. Mark, did you have something else?
Just in terms of scheduling, the schedule that we got, if we just went to town meeting in early May, so let's say mid-May, a contractor was released, and then you just think about one of the first longest lead items that we'll need is structural steel. So if we released structural steel in the middle of May, and let's say it had a 20-week fabrication time for the steel and 4 weeks for shop drawings, that means of review and approval of shop drawings, that means we're not seeing steel in Cohasset going up until the beginning of November. And beyond that, all we're going to be able to do is work in Old Town Hall, doing demo and putting new work in place in Old Town Hall. But as far as the annex building, we'd have foundations in and they'd be waiting for steel. And then that would be going right through the heat of the winter. So I think the GMP process would allow us to procure the material in a timely manner ahead of time and position our construction date when it makes most sense, when we'll have everything, so that we're not waiting for things.
The question though, Mark, is will we have a GMP before town meeting? And that's the trick. That's the trick, because ultimately, if the answer to that is no, we're going to town meeting with a guess. I'm not going to say guess. We're going to town meeting with an estimate, okay, as opposed to with bids in hand. So the question is can we put it in a situation where, because you still have to bid the trade bidders, you still have to bid everything. So if the schedule works, if Steve's schedule works, can it work for the CM? It's all the same bidding. The same time frame for the filed subbids is the trade bidders. Do they have time to do all that and get us a GMP that we can review and put out there to bring to town meeting, so that we can tell the residents that we actually have the real price in hand? Yes, it may be high because it's got some contingencies in it or anything like, but at least it's a GMP. We know that that's the cap. Or, excuse me, are we doing design bid build and we're hitting this with a bid price? It's the same. The question is can we sandwich in getting a CM before the times that Steve shows on there as central register dates and all that sort of stuff, because it all is kind of the same.
Yeah, but if in the scenario of the the lump sum approach, we would actually have to release and start then, because we have to cut them loose, right?
Yeah.
In a GMP, we could, if we can say we can have the GMP finalized and accepted by us as a group here before town meeting, put it in front of town meeting. There's nothing saying that we have to start right then and there. We could take that time after town meeting to procure the temporary facilities. We could work to procure the long lead materials, right? And then actually, as far as starting construction, push the start date of construction itself out further so that we were most efficient.
You could do that with design bid build too, though.
I thought you said we had to start right away because the bids are only good for 30 days.
No, I mean, it's giving them a contract. You have to execute a contract within a certain amount of time. I mean, you're going to have the same issue with the GMP. You're going to need, because that's the final bid. Okay. You're going to need execution of that. Even if you tell them you're going to wait 6 months until you start, because then at least they can sign and they can buy.
And wouldn't those CMs also be providing, instead of us telling them what the schedule has to be, can we ask for them to provide a schedule to us as to what they think it needs to be?
That's part of that would be part of the interview process. That is a big difference, that you would ask for their approach and say, guys, here's what we're doing. Tell us how you would do it. And that becomes part of, so once the procurement of a CM, first it's qualifications, you get them in. Usually everybody that submits is qualified. You take those in, you say, okay, now we're going to move to the next phase. And it becomes a non-price proposal and a price proposal. The non-price proposal is all about approach. They tell you, Town of Cohasset, how we're going to build your project and what we think, we being the CM, what we think is the best approach to do this, and here's how we're going to get it done. And then in a separate envelope, they say, based on that, this is what we're going to charge you for your fee, our fee, and our general conditions. So it's at that RFP, it's after that first pass where you've kind of drawn the line and said, okay, you guys are qualified, you guys aren't. All the qualified ones get to proceed with part two and say, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And that's where you really glean some great info. Okay, here's how CMA is going to do it this way, CMB is going to do it that way. And then that, becomes part of relationships and things like that. Because structural steel is not a filed subbid category. And some CMs may have a better relationship with the guys in Canada than others because they do more work. And that's definitely a plus.
Cool. Jason, do you have a question?
Yeah, so if we go into town meeting with a bid in hand, we're still going to put a contingency on top of that, right?
Without question.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's just hard costs.
Say it's 5%, then that equals then the guaranteed maximum price extra of 5%. No,
I'm putting a 5% on top of your CM at risk also.
Even if it's the guaranteed maximum price? Yeah,
that 5% premium for CM at risk is not a contingency. It's potential additional cost. So we would put whatever those numbers are, design bid build number, CM at risk number, we're putting that 5% below the line on both of those. There's a premium in the CM at risk and how the GMP is built, okay, and how long the pre-construction services are for. So it's not a contingency, that's potential.
Why do you need 5% contingency if it's a guaranteed maximum price?
Because it's still construction. We don't do any job with a contingency under 5%. You get burnt because if we carry 2 because we're hopeful because we have a C, the other part of it is because you won't have gained. Maybe it won't be up to 5, but because you won't have gained the time and the value of having the CM and have them spending the time with the design to be able to root out the problems that you would end up paying for with that contingency for stuff that doesn't get shaken out all the way.
So it's really not a guaranteed maximum price then? I think that's the whole point, is they guaranteeing a maximum price.
Yeah, on the plans and specs that they have, but a change order to a design bid builder is a change order to a CM at risk guy. If there's rock under the building that nobody knows about, it's a change order for both of them. If there's a window that's missing in the plans, it's a change order for both of them. So there's, the GMP, it's more of a defined term than an actual, it's basically the GMP equals lump sum. You know what I mean? But GMP means in my list of prices that build my GMP, I've got some contingencies. I've got some allowances. If I don't spend them, you get them back. As opposed to design bid build, if they've built in any contingencies, if they don't spend them, you never see them, because if they do the job for under 12 million and they do it for 11, they're keeping $1 million. Under CM at risk, if they do the job for 11 and the GMP is 12, you're getting $1 million back because you've seen it through the open book accounting, because we know what all the pieces add up to. So that's the big difference.
Or it becomes a change order, right? So,
yeah, I mean,
it's like on the contingency.
Yeah. I mean, change order is a change order. I mean, the things that are change orders in one delivery method are largely change orders in the other delivery method as well.
But in the GMP delivery method, there's some instances where there may be gaps in something that's not on the prints that should be reasonably inferred by the contractor that, okay, maybe we can fill if there's a little gap there, but not to be confused with if we decide to go from a laminate countertop to a granite countertop, that they've got that covered somewhere.
So what I would say is table this, move on to the VE stuff. I'm going to proceed with this. I'll work with Steve on ironing out and Mark. I'll share that with Mark too, because he lives this in his world, you know, what a schedule would look like to see if we can make it work and if it's worth it, you know, timing wise. And then when we revisit this, we can figure out what the best plan of action is.
Sounds great. Thank you, John, very much.
Isaiah had his hand up.
I just wanted to say,
Sure. Sorry.
I think the benefits of CM is usually in the design phase, because if you're doing something complex like a new building and a renovation that's really old, they can do selective demolition and you can determine whether things are more beneficial or not. Also, they can do on-call value engineering, like Stu could call them up and say, we're thinking of this finish or this, what are you finding these days is cheaper? Both of those, I think, are in jeopardy because the drawings are going to be done, or if I don't know, everyone's saying something different here about exactly when the drawings are done and when we're going out to bid. But I mean, whether we have a CM on board. And the other benefit is pre-bid packages to deliver it earlier. And that's why I'm confused, because different people are saying different things about whether we can do that or not.
I think your benefit of early packages, if the goal is to go to town meeting with a number this May, your opportunity for early packages is gone, because you're trying, whether you're bidding at design bid build or you're trying to get a GMP out of a construction manager, you need that number for May. So it's going to be January in a week, you know, to try to pull that off and hire them and all that. So I agree with you, Josiah. I think that it's, you know, it's a lot of the value is, you know, has been abated, unfortunately, from the design side. So the question becomes is, you know, is there a benefit on the construction side and the management of the project? Yeah, probably, but certainly to a lesser extent than if you had them in early. So the question becomes, and do we think about this over the next few weeks, is there a benefit to delay? I hate the word, because I think it's going to cost you more, you know, just from a raw construction costs. But is there something that, you know, bidder or CMA would see that says, oh, guys, you really shouldn't do this way. We should change this before we put this out to bid. You know, they'll still have the opportunity to look at the drawings, you know, but again, you've lost your time. If the goal is hard number 2 town meeting in May, to lock it in, you know, I think we're running thin on that time for this. So I mean, let me look and see if we can get it in, and I can share it with Michelle, and she can share it with all of you, and you know, we can do a kind of a side-by-side comparison and see if it's feasible. And if it's not feasible, then maybe you have your answer right there. Because again, 2 to 3%, waiting 6 months to go to fall town meeting.
Sam?
Yeah, I tend to feel very strongly that we should not let the annual town meeting drive this process. I think that's the wrong way to go. The town can also schedule a special town meeting before the fall special town meeting to deal with this if it's wise to do so. And what I see you saying, John, is that it's going to be very tight to make this by the annual town meeting. And we may be forced into going a route that we're going to regret later on. And those are just my feelings on it.
So Phil, let me go a little further with this offline. I'll talk with Mark. We'll get Steve involved and just see what this looks like, you know, on a schedule. And listen, again, bringing it up because we had some inquiries over it. Do I think we can build a successful project without it? Yes. Do I think we could build a successful project with it? Yes. You know, it's but we are where we are with the schedule and with the design, and that's okay. I mean, listen, we spent a lot of energy and time on geothermal, and I think that's why this didn't come up until that had kind of been put away. There was a lot of energy spent on that decision, and that's okay, and that's what it needed. But this thing might have fallen by the wayside a little bit, and we may have lost opportunity. Again, doesn't mean nobody did anything wrong here. It's just timing may not work to consider it. And I think if we consider it, the timing might hurt the bottom line, but we need to look at that a little bit more. So why don't we run through the VE stuff and see what we're facing as far as that, and that may help make the decision anyway. If you're looking at a 5% premium to do this.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, John.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Who's going to do the VE? Stuart?
You're on mute. Stu, you're on mute.
Stuart, we can't hear you.
You have to unmute.
Sorry.
There you go.
I could certainly do the VE. Phil had told me that Steve was going to walk us through, but I can certainly do it. And Natalie will actually probably do a lot.
I can share the list that we sent you last week.
Yeah, Phil and I discussed this. So if you can put it up, we can go through it.
Yeah.
Thought I gave you, hold on one second. I think I gave everyone co-hosting abilities. Let's see. Yep. Natalie, can you do it? You are a co-host.
Yep.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Where do we want to start with? GGD's suggestion or?
Start with yours. That one.
Yeah, let's do ours. I would just jump in and say overall, let's look at the kind of the big picture here. We went through and there are a number of things that we're talking about adding. So we put those things in as adds, and then we came up with everything that we could come up with that we thought we could reasonably talk about taking out. Many of those things can be put in the contract as alternates. So should there be, money after a bid, we could put them back in. I have to say overall, it's not a very high percentage. We're looking at a bid that's about $11.5 million, and we're coming up with about $250,000 worth of stuff that we think we could, reasonably talk about taking out of the project. So that's just my introduction.
Now, if I could, Stu, just for a second, I think a big part of this, and it'd be really good if we could get an input and some direction on this, is the whole building generator topic. Actually, the $100,000 that is shown there, it's probably more like 120. Phil and I had a few emails going back and forth today with GGD input, because right now you're carrying about 145,000 in the base bid. This is the additive to go to a whole building generator, but it's more like 100, 120, just sort of round numbers. That's an add. That's not a value engineering. So
are those two adds part of the minus 248, or that subtracts from the 248?
That gets added in. So
if you accept everything here, you'll have minus 148 or 128.
Or you'd have, if you accepted everything here, you'd have the 248. Is I believe.
So if you say
get
no
another
building
100,
generator.
Yeah, you get another 100 out of.
You get another 100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, that's good news.
we have Tanya Bodell on the meeting. She's the chairperson of the Alternative Energy Committee, and she and Steve Wenner are both on here. And I think they'd like to weigh in on this generator a little bit. They are here. Tanya, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you want to be promoted?
Sure, promote me. Perfect. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Tanya, thank you for coming.
So I guess I don't have any background on this, but I think two things. One is we can help you understand size that you need. We have all the data on the usage for the town hall, historically going back 6 years, as well as give you some insight into a potential path that the town might be able to take that could get a battery for the town hall that would be funded 75% from the federal government. So I guess the first thing is if I could understand a little bit of background as far as size, fuel, where would it go? Or is this just a placeholder?
Steve or Stu, do you have any information on what we proposed for a generator at the time?
I'm just trying to look up the.
I don't have that info handy.
Yeah, the whether it's a natural gas or not, that is still to be determined. I believe that what we have in the bid right now is a diesel day tank, belly tank, whatever you want to call it, for the generator that's being currently included and or the upgrade, only because they have not gotten the information from the gas company whether we could even go with gas or not. So and you know, part of the cost for the generator, you know, depending on the size, is you got an upgrade in size for your pad, and then you're going to have some kind of enclosure around it because of the noise. So we sort of included some dollars for that also.
Right, but is this essential services only, or to allow the town hall to continue to operate at full electrical load?
Well, if we would go with the whole building, it would be the whole building, so that it could be used as a, you know, as a shelter, I guess. I don't know, it'd be 100% for a shelter because he's got to have some shower facilities. But the existing, I'm trying to call up the estimate for what's in the base bid is not a whole building generator.
Yes, I think the building would just be the essential services, and then the amount we're talking about here would be the additional to be able to fully power the building. And I just saw what I earlier today, I looked at what those two capacities were, and I don't have them in front of me at the moment.
Are there any implications of just building this without a generator and then determining later that you need one, or the battery technology improves so it becomes more cost effective, so you do it later? Is there anything?
I think the emergency lighting has been designed around the generator.
Yeah, I think I asked that last time.
And that's the emergency lighting, meaning the essential services generator.
Yeah, life safety.
You wouldn't need the emergency lighting if you had the whole building generator, right?
Well, it would also be tied into that. Yeah. You know, that way you're not having to use.
You still have emergency lighting, but it's just part of it.
Right, but you wouldn't be using the emergency lights if you're able to continue to operate with the electricity.
Well, the emergency lights are if there's a power outage, the emergency lights are being powered off of the generator. And right now, the base estimate has 150 kW diesel generator included with the associated transfer switches and so forth. I believe the whole building, Stu, wasn't it 300 kilowatt?
That's what I would have said. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
I think it jumps up to 300 kilowatt.
Does this estimate have the generator?
I'm sorry?
No. I thought I had the estimate with the generator open.
No, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, okay.
Natalie,
okay, so the whole cost that you have is 120 plus whatever's in the base. Do we know what that number is?
145.
145. Okay, so we're close. We have estimates for batteries coming in for 0.5 megawatt, which would be able to power the town hall for 4 days in the middle of summer, which is top load. That's coming in at around 300,000. That's now. So, and it's part, the way we are looking at it, and again, 75% that could be paid for if we're able to get the FEMA grant. We've been designing a microgrid for the sort of core downtown area, and it goes around a backbone that goes around Sawyer Street down to the town hall, around to the harbor, so that it can power the fire station, police station, water plant, wastewater treatment plant, back around up Sawyer Street, up Pond Street to the water plant. And we, as part of that design, have generation plus rotating generators, which is what you're talking about with the diesel, as well as batteries. And one of the sites we identified for a potential battery is the town hall. Now there's a lot of ifs. The number we have that would meet the town hall load for 4 days, which is what we're targeting. Actually, we're targeting 2 days in the summer, which gives us 4 days in the winter. But it turns out the town hall load, 0.5 megawatt, would be able to power it for around 4 days in the summer, more in the winter. That's coming in at around 300,000. We haven't gotten specific quotes, but it seems like it's potentially competitive with the diesel generator, and for the needs, given where the outages are, could meet the needs. And if we are able to win, we could get 75% of that funded. The other thing is we need to have rotating generators on the system to the tune of about 7.5 megawatts. So it is possible we could include, if you wanted to go with a diesel generator or natural gas generator, depending on what you could do, we could add that into it could be considered included in the bid and funded to 75%. We would just have to figure out, is there a way to have it connected to the backbone? And I think we could allow it to be connected to the backbone when that's providing supply directly into the town hall if the backbone for some reason goes out. So that's something that we've been looking at. And I think that's why Michelle thought we should talk to you, because she knew you were going to be discussing the generator. We just wanted to let you know some of the things that we're doing, so we're communicating, and answer any questions you might have about some of the options and the funding that we're trying to go after. Mark, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so just in terms of the grants that are available there, we would still, you said 75%, right? But we would still have to have generation to that grid, meaning a natural gas or a diesel generator.
Yep. So for the design of the microgrid, it's we have about 7.5 megawatts of batteries and 7.5 megawatts of rotating generation. We of course are trying to keep it clean, right? So we're looking at hydrogen or renewable natural gas, but we also recognize that we might not have that option.
Because we probably, from a facility standpoint, we probably wouldn't be able to rely on batteries alone, even if the batteries could get 4 days, because as we all know from this past storm that we had, which was probably the most sizable in a while here, of how long we were out without power, right? After that battery life of 4 days, 2 to 4 days runs out, from a code perspective, we still need to have emergency lighting in the building. And at that point, we would run out of power and the building would go dark. But if we have generators hooked up to the grid and part of the system, that could potentially go indefinitely, right?
That's right. So the way the battery is set up, it's part of the system. So the microgrid itself, I'd have to look specifically at the town hall. We have those numbers, but I think it decreases the outages under the National Grid projections by around 50%. The one time it wouldn't would be if the tree falls on the backbone of the microgrid say on Sawyer Street or Town Hall, at which point we had the backup battery at the Town Hall to give almost perfect power because you had that. As far as the battery running out, you just wouldn't manage it to run out, right? You'd have an idea from National Grid when is the backbone going to be up and running again, because they would prioritize the removal of the tree on the backbone. So we wouldn't have 6-day outages on the backbone. We would have aggressive tree trimming to prevent any trees from falling on the backbone. So the backbone itself would be able to run. So that alone improves the power to the Town Hall. And then the backup battery being located at the Town Hall would fit, address any other outage that there might be. And to the extent there was still a problem that was going to be a multi-day, you would run the battery, you could run it above essential services, below total load, and just have empty spaces, down if you needed to. Or the other option we're talking about here is we could have one of the pieces of the rotating generator at the Town Hall, contributing to the grid when the grid is operating. And if the microgrid goes down, powering the Town Hall to give it perfect power.
So Tanya, what are the size of these batteries? Where are they located?
So the size of the battery that we had looked at for Town Hall, given the load and our targeted days, would be a 0.5 megawatt battery. And that would be like a storage container of like 9 feet high, 8 feet wide, and 20 feet deep. And I can pull up a picture if you'd like, just to give you an image. But it's basically like storage container. You could decorate it however you wanted with vinyl wrap. And that's a 0.5 megawatt. A full megawatt, which we are looking at putting at the police fire under the design, would be at the police fire station as well as the schools. A full megawatt is 40 feet long versus 20 feet long.
And those would be on site, correct?
Correct. They'd be on site, they'd be connected to the building as well as to the backbone of the grid. And if the backbone of the grid is operating, it's contributing to everybody's power, including the town. And if the backbone goes down because the aggressive vegetation management didn't work or something happens, it'd be an embedded microgrid, basically would switch to be able to provide directly to the Town Hall.
Do we have a place where we could put something that large?
Is it supposed to go inside the building or is this outside?
The outside. I would assume this has to be vented somehow. It's to be outside.
Outside.
Outside. I mean, I don't know what the basement looks like. It has to be on an outer wall or outside.
And I don't think we have 8 feet of head clearance in the basement space.
No. The existing basement, it's 6'8", I believe.
So we have, if we have it on the side of the building, we're too close to the church, or we're sacrificing parking, or is there any place that something that large can actually go? Have we already built that into our specs in the back where the mechanicals were going to be?
Directly adjacent would be really, really hard.
If you were doing it in lieu of the transformer, it's not going to be that different than the size of the transformer.
But
now, where are you putting the generator?
Is that what you mean to the generator?
Back of the building.
So right now the discussion about generator going here, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And how big is that space?
I'd have to measure.
But Tanya, you said it has to be adjacent, a battery?
No. It doesn't.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I misinterpreted. That was where my question was. I'm like, wait a minute, we don't have a place to put a container next to the building.
Oh, essentially takes up a parking space. So you put in a parking space and put some bollards around it, maybe 2. So we could lose 2 parking spots, but I don't know how that works with our count.
Well, you mean along the building?
But if it doesn't, it can be back where the generator is. Then it's not, because it would be instead of the generator. So we wouldn't. we wouldn't lose it. I misunderstood. I thought you said it had to be adjacent to the building. So sorry.
No.
Okay, so we moved the generator to the back corner now?
I believe that was the requested location.
Okay.
But what I drew is approximately 10 feet wide by 25 feet long, I'd say.
Oh, what's the height? Because you're going to be blocking it in and soundproofing it, right?
Well, it'd have some kind of high fence. I mean, if it's a whole building generator, those things are pretty tall, and they've got the stacks, so they do make some noise.
Which is why it's located where it is.
In the far corner, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 0.5 megawatt, it sounds like they're about the same size, right?
Yes.
I would say, yeah. Yep.
Now, again, you know, we're trying to get this grant, and I always say there's no guarantees, especially with this grant. We think we have a great project, but MEMA has to think that, and then FEMA has to think that before we would get it. But it's 75% funding from the state. And because it's a microgrid, I'm sorry, 75% funding from the federal government. And because it's a microgrid and focused on some of the things the state's trying to accomplish, we think we could also get some additional funding from the state and possibly some assistance from the vendors in the form of discounts or in-kind services. So, but to be conservative, you know, we're going after this grant, which would be 75% off. And it could be battery, which is how we've been conceptualizing it. And we dedicated one to the town hall. But if you wanted to go ahead with a rotating generator, we could either incorporate that into the grid and try to get 75% funding for that as well, because we do need rotating generators for the stability of the system. Or, you know, you could have it as a standalone microgrid, embedded microgrid building that only needs to operate if the microgrid goes down.
Could you put the batteries in the garage?
I don't know where the garage is or how big it is, but
in here?
Yeah.
What's in this building right now?
2 generators.
Generators.
Well, that was going to be a next question for today is what are we doing with that? And maybe we'll talk about it now.
And the other question is, why are we going with a diesel generator, not a natural gas? That just sounds like a maintenance nightmare for public works and facility staff.
I think it was only because we don't have the information on the gas yet, Jason.
Okay.
I think GGD.
Because I saw you keeping the gas line, so I kind of assumed that was for a generator.
Right, but we just don't know what the capacity is. So that GGD is chasing that down with the gas company just to see if that can be done. So in the estimate, it is priced as a diesel generator for now, which I believe is the least expensive. The gas is more expensive. So we're only going up, not down.
Yeah, that was my concern because diesel is cheaper. But
you do, I mean, you do have to have the.
If the power's out for 4 days, we don't want to be filling a generator with diesel all the time. Not that I'll be doing it, but I'm speaking for the guys in the DPW that will be.
I mean, a 300 kilowatt generator is pretty sizable. That's a lot of diesel. I don't know what we have now there. But definitely, I would say look at the natural gas. I think this winter is going to be a tough winter because the LNG has some supply chain issues, and that's our third pipeline from the east into New England. So the ISO New England is already saying we might not have electricity. We might have rolling blackouts, and we could have some gas supply shortages. But I think in the long term, that's temporary, because as more renewables come online, which is a goal of New England, I think the gas supply is going to need to find a home. But we are gas constrained in the winter. The winter is actually the big problem that New England has because of gas supply. So you have trade-offs, right, with the gas versus diesel.
One full month while we go back to Seattle is extremely anxious.
I mean, but we have a gas demand currently that is going away. So our net is probably going to be equal gas to gas on a need basis.
That's a town. I'm talking about New England total, but yes.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm talking about like capacity there at site.
Mm-hmm. So the capacity right now, you think, Jason, is 300 kilowatts?
No, right now we have 2 gas-fired boilers running in the basement that are going away once we convert to air source heat pumps.
So the electricity demand is going to be higher in the winter, significantly higher. We can actually, we should be aware of that, because we would want to make sure that there's a 300 kilowatt size to the heat pump load.
Yes.
I believe we got that from the engineers.
Yes.
Correct, Sue?
Yes,
yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I have some faith in that.
Okay, I see. So Jason's comment is that the natural gas that's currently being used for the heating is going away. And so you will just have to hear what National Grid has to say, but they should be able to get you that information fairly quickly. We've been working with them extensively on the microgrid design. So if you need us to ask some folks to come and look at that, we most certainly can. And Jason has a good relationship with them too.
Tanya, I think you mentioned 2 different kinds of generators, one that'd be standalone and one, was it revolving? I'm not sure what it was.
No, rotating, the rotating generator just is like the typical internal combustion engine.
Oh, I see. And would both of them you're suggesting we be connected with the microgrid?
That is up to you. You know, again, we're all skating towards the puck here. If we do get the funding for the microgrid, we are going to need rotating generators. I say rotating generators because it could be gas, it could be diesel, it could be hydrogen, it could be renewable natural gas, it could be whatever. So I just say rotating generators. And in addition to that, the batteries, and they have to be placed somewhere. So we were trying to place them at essential services, like the town hall, schools, the police, fire, water, wastewater treatment plant. Sure. To get nearly perfect power to those facilities. Sure. And because we need to put them someplace.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And do you know if like the connections or wiring is any different from the generator as it would be for the battery to like tie into the grid or tie into the town hall?
No, I think they're going to have protection and switches to be able to switch to island off the embedded microgrid. That would be like the town hall would be an embedded microgrid that could switch off if the backbone's not working. The goal would be to have that backbone of the microgrid supplying better power supply to anybody who's connected. And the town hall would be connected directly. So I think it does have a pretty good impact. I'd have to look at the numbers because it's on a weak part of the system right now. So part of what the microgrid does is it hardens up the system that's servicing the town hall. The actual interconnections and the wiring to the town hall versus the backbone would be approximately the same, and the switches would be the same. There might be some additional connection on the rotating generator, as well as, you know, obviously there's going to have to be controls for both to be able to feed the town hall according to its needs. The generator has a min-gen level, though, I think.
Can I sort of ask a nuts and bolts type question? Is if if we're going to do batteries or a generator and partial batteries, the whole battery portion of it, is that something that we would be now incorporating into the documents for the contractors to do, or is this a separate contract for installation at municipal buildings throughout the town by a vendor that you guys are either getting or is going to be part of the program? And that we would then have to coordinate the installation between the electrical contractor for the GC and whoever the battery contractor is.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're having this conversation. It would be coordinated, right? We wouldn't just go off and start placing things, especially depending on the timing of the town hall. But if the microgrid goes forward, we'd be awarded it mid-year next year, and then we basically build it within 3 years. I don't know the timing that you guys are thinking of for the town hall. But we would obviously coordinate with the timing of the new town hall.
All right, so it sounds like that if we would need to incorporate some infrastructure, but not the batteries themselves.
Yeah, or I think what I would say you go do what you're doing, right? Thinking about the backup to the town hall, and we'll know in 6 months if we've been given the award. We have just sort of generalized where it is, but we have as a first phase a study to finalize. At that point, we'd come back to you, and I think this is where the nuts and bolts decisions would have to be made. Do you want the battery? Do you want the rotating generator? Do you want both? Can we put it into the microgrid and get 75% of it paid for by the federal government? You know, that type of, they don't pay for it until we show that we've installed it and have the receipts. So they reimburse.
It's a reimbursable, right?
So what is the timing, or what is the hopeful timing?
Well, I mean, it hasn't been locked down, but in general, part of our earlier discussion was, depending on the procurement type we go with, you know, potentially having a bid in hand for the May town meeting, and if we get the positive vote, then the contractor could potentially start, or a contract be awarded mid-May for, you know, let's say a June 1 notice to proceed. Probably earliest of anything at this point. So,
and that bid would have a placeholder for the generator and the interconnection
wires? Right now it's part of the it's part of the contract right now for the 150 kilowatt, and that's why we started the discussion about whether we're going to upgrade it to a whole building 300 kilowatt.
Got it.
So we're in the process trying, you know, that's part of what we're trying to figure out. What are we going to have in the base bid documents? But some kind of generator will be in the project, unless we completely do something different as far as emergency ballast or something and lights, but we're really not going in that direction.
Okay. No, look, I think this is good that can talk and communicate, and we'll just keep you apprised of what's happening on our end. You know, like I said, 75% is a nice grant if you can get it.
Right.
And that would also pay for the interconnection to the broader system. I think what you're looking at is just an interconnection directly into the building.
Correct.
So I would say
you wouldn't know about whether you got the grant for at least 6 months, you said?
Yeah, I think the final proposal, the final bid is due January 28th. And then FEMA will review it. And I think that it'll be probably around the time that you're going to town hall.
Given that, and I know that there's a tie-in with the batteries and the emergency lighting and whatnot, could we utilize a smaller scale outside battery, just enough to power, have it all configured so it would only power certain needed stuff to start, and then we could upgrade it afterwards. So we're not putting in the battery powered lights to then replace them with a generator or battery powered, a full scale battery in the parking lot, but just have a smaller scale battery, and like I said, in the garage or something, like a power wall basically, to power the emergency lighting that's needed today to be up to code, and then allow for the capability to expand it at a later date if we get this grant or if other monies become available later.
I think, Jason, that's not a question to me, right? That's a design issue to the
That's
town
a design
office.
question. That's a question to Stu and GGD, not
So
deep at all.
you're saying in lieu of the generator, put in the batteries, or?
No, I'm saying if in lieu of ever putting in battery powered lights, put in let's call it a power wall, so that it could be then converted to I'll call Tanya's a huge power wall in the parking lot. So you could kind of instead of wasting the money on the battery powered lights.
Well, I don't think we don't have battery powered lights. Our lighting, our emergency lighting is going to be off the generator on an emergency circuit.
I thought the generator was in, now we're officially saying generators in that.
Yes, but only for emergency size, not for a whole building size yet.
Right.
Okay.
The whole building would be additional 120,000 or thereabouts.
So we should have no EBUs in the building.
Okay. I thought I missed that piece of change from last meeting. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's an emergency lighting circuit.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Tanya while she's here? Thank you very much. I think that's kind of exciting. That'd be fun if we could get a battery there and not have to think about a noisy generator.
Well, it'd be fun if we could get better power too. So that's our goal. That's our goal. There's still a large Sisyphusian hill to climb, but we're climbing it. So yeah, no, let's thank you, Michelle, for allowing us to come, and Phil for putting us, allowing us to be invited. We are going to do some thinking on this, knowing where you're coming out, and we'll circulate around the presentation we gave to the select board so you can get a feel for what we're doing with respect to the microgrid. And then, like I said, right now we've got a battery at the town hall, which would be 75% paid for, but keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep doing what we're doing. We'll keep communicating. And as more information becomes clear and we get to decision points, we can make those decisions. But we definitely are looking at a microgrid with both batteries and rotating generation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
All right, we continuing on the VR here.
Yeah, so let's go back to the generator, because the decision here is really whether we should be proceeding with a generator that does basic building services, or whether you are interested in spending more money, approximately $120,000, to do a generator that would power the whole building.
So to be honest, I think this is more of a select board question. It came up when the group presented to them. And I think they wanted to know the dollar value difference between a whole building generator versus just an emergency generator. So if you wouldn't mind, can we take that tomorrow back to them, see what they think, and get back to you on that item, and we can move along to the others?
Sure.
Okay.
The next, we just put an allowance in here because for acoustical treatment in the auditorium. If we're going to do an acoustical study, they're going to come back with some recommendations. I'm not sure what they're going to be, so we just put a placeholder in here for that. But we just want to make it clear that that's something else that's an addition.
Sure.
Then when we looked at the estimate, we thought that the estimate, they were carrying a big number for underpinning, and we thought it was way too high. And our feeling was we could pull about $75,000 out of that underpinning allowance. So that's sort of an easy one. That's just an estimating adjustment that we think we could reasonably make. Then we started looking, the next one would be, as everybody knows, we have granite around the foundation and around all the retaining walls. If we were to switch from granite to brick, we think we'd save about $10,000. And then I think again down here we have it, if we just did concrete, about $75,000 if we just had concrete with no granite cladding.
Granite.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
I
that's
agree.
going to.
Granite. I don't think the community would.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Vote favorably for the concrete or brick.
Who was that, Tucker?
That's me.
Welcome. Yeah, I don't think this. Thank you for coming. I don't think this town would go with concrete and brick.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a good decision. So let's see, Natalie, this one with the ice and water shield currently.
The whole is covered, and this would be edges and valleys.
So this would be to do it just at the edges and the valleys?
Yep.
Which is where we normally do it instead of every place, right?
Yeah, that's what typically show an estimator carried everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, that's a correction.
This is a correction.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one is to do clapboard siding instead of the shiplap siding that we've currently been showing. A long time ago when we were in design, Josiah suggested that we do the siding with a shiplap. And we thought that was a great idea, so that's how we have proceeded with that. If we changed from the shiplap to a regular clapboard, we think there's about $11,000 worth of savings.
Well, it's actually about 22, 23.
If you don't have the painting.
If you have the painting in, yeah.
Can I ask a question? So you're saying go to the hardy clapboard versus?
Yes.
So that's cement board, right? You're putting
Yes.
a cement board siding up?
Yes, but it's cement board in either case. It's just the shape of the cement board. Whether it's a flat board that has a little reveal between each board, which gives it a different look, which we think is nice, versus doing a regular clapboard.
And doesn't it also, well, I guess.
So just to,
I have a question. What?
Just to dumb it down a little bit, I guess. So the clapboard option would be to mimic what we currently have on Old Town Hall, and the shiplap has kind of created its own little new identity for the addition.
That's correct.
Yes.
Tucker, did you have a question?
My question was going to be which one looks closer to what's on current town hall existing.
I think the clapboard does. The issue
Right.
was when we were back looking at the original building, I think the feeling was that the flush was going to be a crisper, nicer looking building. You want to speak to this, Josiah?
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea. I'm glad you thought it was a good idea. I think that the two buildings don't need to be the same. In fact, if they're in the same family, but one's a modern building, I think it'll be actually more appropriate myself.
It might be, I would maybe suggest just in a general sense, like a visual for the board here to help understand what the general look is, not necessarily a whole building view rendering here, but just a kind of a different side-by-side comparison visually.
You mean like a sample?
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, we could do this. And this is also something you'll find that we put in the alternate list, because this is something that makes an easy alternate, if we wanted to bid the project with both of them. So this is not something that's critical to make a decision about.
Yep. I think you're muted. I think you're trying to say.
You're muted.
Me. Okay, I have a comment on the hardy plank that by using that, we will reduce our future maintenance costs versus a prime clapboard.
Yeah,
you can get the hardy plank with a pre-UV put on coating on it.
Yeah, so both of these products are essentially the same thing. We're just talking about a difference in the shape. Both of them are hardy products, same material, same finish. It's just a difference in the shape.
So yeah, the shiplap comes primed, so it gets painted.
Yes. The shiplap requires exterior paint still.
That's
according to my understanding.
Yes, but the material itself is the same. So it's not there's not a rot issue or anything about.
It's just painting.
Yeah, just painting. Okay.
This is merely a aesthetics decision.
This is an aesthetics decision, yes.
No performance qualities different.
I don't think there's any difference in performance.
Well, no, I do have a question. There is performance difference only because if you're going to use the shiplap, you're going to have to maintain it and paint it periodically. Whereas if you're using the hardy clapboard, it's already paint. There's no maintenance involved in that. I think was Sam's point, maybe.
That's my point.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think cleaning only for that portion. However, the existing building will still have clapboard and it will have to be painted.
Maybe we can circle back on that one, right?
Yeah, we can. This is not one we have to decide tonight because this is an easy alternative.
Okay.
Next is the transaction windows. Natalie, this is whether we would do glass at the transaction windows, right?
I believe so. Or smaller glass windows.
So as you know, the transaction windows now, we completely cover them with glass and they have a little hole and a little transaction slot in there. And this, of course, was done for COVID. If we wanted to open those up, we think there's some potential savings there, but it's only about $15,000.
What do you mean when you say open up?
So there would be no glass there. It would just be an opening.
Well, I think we need that for security, if nothing else.
I think it's a good idea to leave it in.
Yeah, I think it was a security measure as well, Phil.
Yeah, I'd say no on that.
Next one, they had a ledge removal allowance, which we thought we weren't really sure why we were going to need that. So our feeling was we could probably pull that out, and that's about $17,000 in the estimate.
Well, I don't know if we should do that because if we have them carry it, or maybe we reduce the cubic yardage.
Yeah.
And we don't use it, we're going to get that back
right.
as a credit anyways.
Yeah.
I know it affects the current budget, but it's $17,000. Maybe if we cut it to 100, but I'm always worried about what's under the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what's everybody's thoughts on that.
I'd carry it.
Do you want to keep 100 cubic yard or carry the whole thing?
I'd keep the ledge removance allowance until we know if we need it or not.
Yeah, I would say it's an allowance. We'll spend it if we need it, and we won't if we don't.
Let's leave it alone.
That's a lot of cubic yards.
Yeah.
And we have a basement already, so we're not taking that much. We're taking more out, but it seems like a lot of cubic yards.
That's right. The only thing we're doing is we've lowered the basement floor down, so we thought that seemed like a lot. So
yeah, I think it's a lot.
I think we got some utilities though, don't we?
We do.
Manholes. So maybe all right. If you want, Zai, you think we should carry 100?
I defer to you guys. It seems like a lot to me. That's all I can say.
Sure, reduce it to 100.
Okay.
Next.
The civil engineer is showing vertical granite curb all the way around the all the paving that we're doing. We could cut back on that, I think, pretty reasonably and carry it just around the building itself and then around the edges of the site, not do a vertical granite curb there, but do a bituminous curb there.
Yeah, if you look at the site, all of this curbing is granite right now. And if we were to,
I think that's a good one to take. It's an easy one.
Yeah.
Why don't you just let the water flow off like it does today for stormwater purposes?
That's essentially is what you do with a bituminous curb. It's just
no, you still have a lip on it if you're doing you.
What's the savings in a precast curb?
No precast.
Why's that?
Somewhere in between.
Because it's maintenance. It's a maintenance nightmare, Josiah.
Yeah, but bituminous concrete is worthless. You hit it with a plow and it's gone.
I wouldn't put a berm on it. I just go straight off the edge like it is currently. I wouldn't put a berm. I just do whatever you call it.
Edge of pave.
Edge of
yes.
Yeah. And we could certainly do that. That's about 20, that's almost 20 grand. So
well, I think you, Natalie, can you put that site plan up again?
Yes. So what we suggesting is cutting.
What about the islands? The islands.
There is one island.
The rest is it's a painted island, right?
Yeah, this is just painted.
Okay.
So yeah, what we are suggesting is I think
all the perimeter.
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Too many.
Is the island vertical or is it sloped? Mountable.
Vertical granite curb. So all of this along the parking lot, all this back area would be just edge of pave.
We change that to edge of pave. You keep that island in the small island in the middle as whatever you have, granite, or if you don't want precast concrete. And then you have the entry and the
entry all around the building. We keep that as granite.
Yeah, we would keep this as granite.
Okay.
Okay. The next one would be to delete some of the acoustical ceilings at the lower level. We have some storage rooms and some other things down there. And if we didn't do acoustical ceilings down there, it's going to save maybe $11,000, $12,000.
It looks like
so you look up and see
offset to our auditorium acousticals.
What was that?
I said it looks like it could be a nice offset to adding the acoustical treatment in the auditorium.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you look up, you see deck that's been spray fireproofed.
Well, I don't think we don't have to spray fireproof it.
Okay, good.
But so you'd look up and you'd see you'd see the ductwork and electrical conduit and sprinklers running around down there.
Maybe we could paint all that out black.
Yeah, would that be something that can be added later? Because one of the things that we want to make sure we're doing is making the building flexible for future use. That's part of our selling point.
Yeah.
So as long as that can be added later.
Where we would suggest removing it is in the flex space, wherever the storage is, MDF room, maybe cutting it off here. No ceiling in these areas.
The only problem, Caroline, with that is if you're gonna get rid of the grid, then the light fixture type will change.
That's right.
Probably to some kind of pendant, which you still maybe you have the pendant lights if you want to put a ceiling above that and sort of cut around the aircraft table may work.
Right, and lights maybe could be specified in a way that would be more or less flexible. Mechanical, I think, would be harder, and fire protection would be different as well. So
I think in places where the mechanicals are, where it's clearly not going to be used for anything other than that in the future, that's totally fine. But the flex space, you know, might be opposite. We want that to be able to be used for anything in the future. So that would be my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, so it would be cheaper in the long run just to go ahead and finish it now than I think for you to have to come in and finish it later.
Yeah. If you don't think just painting everything in that ceiling to make it look, you sort of go away, then you don't want to do this.
So in terms of the finish there, painting for that open ceiling look is not necessarily as cheap as people think. So that wouldn't, if we deleted that, we would still have then an ad if we wanted to leave it as a finish painted open ceiling concept versus this. So there's three different things. There's putting an acoustical ceiling, there's leaving an open, rough, painted, industrial, open concept look to it. And the third is leave it open and unpainted and rough for future. So
yeah, and what is that number, the third?
I think JRA is showing an unpainted ceiling, correct?
Correct. Just want to put that out there so that folks understand that this doesn't mean we'll have the black painted ceiling.
Yeah. I should have qualified that, but
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you know, if it's probably short dollars in terms of the remaining spaces to add a ceiling in there. You know, again, as someone mentioned, the fire protection needs to be pointed up versus down. The lights need to be different, but it's not a monumental lift. If we had on the drawings, maintain mechanicals above X elevation for future ceiling, right? And then at least things wouldn't be located below, say, 9 foot or 8 foot.
Right. I think the bigger, where the work would come in is if we drop a ceiling in, then the fire protection has to have heads in the ceiling. The registers have to be in the ceiling instead of right on the duct, as Correct. You would sometimes.
And all of that, of course, means if you want to put a ceiling in later, it's going to cost you more than what we've saved by taking it out.
So I think to Carolyn's point, because that flex space is so critical to us, and we're likely going to fill that up almost immediately, I think we need to keep this in here.
Yeah. Okay.
So then it's basically.
That's a no.
So the next one is we looked at doing some value engineering to the lay-in lightings, and this is all the offices, Natalie, or just the ones in the basement?
This is just in the offices.
But it's in all the offices.
All the offices.
So right now we have a GGD is showing a fixture it's an LED that's got a little lens in the middle.
Like a little basket.
Yeah, typical basket. This would be going to a less expensive LED that's just a single sort of glowing plane, right? So it's probably not as nice a fixture. The lighting's probably not as nice, but you could save about $18,000.
Is this a fixture that when National Grid comes back, like from their mass save program, this could be a potential offset?
I think either of the fixtures should be fairly equivalent from an energy perspective.
Both of them. One type is just slightly more expensive. That's all.
I think lighting is very important. We should keep the original lighting.
You may want to look to see what they're proposing.
Yeah, can we see a cut on both of them?
Yes, we probably can.
I'll look. I'll get the images.
Keep that open.
And so let's see, next one. Right now, there's these vaults that go all through the building, right? And the plan has always been to take those out and put a new floor structure in to fill in and then reclaim the space. If we wanted to not do that and leave the vaults, but just use them as storage space, kind of the way you use them now, we think that might result in about $50,000 worth of savings. I think currently what we're showing on the drawings is removing the vaults on the upper 2 floors, but leaving the one in the basement. But this would be.
Yes.
That would be where the toilets are in that scenario.
We would lose one
toilet right there. That's correct.
Right here in this area. So you would just have a storage here, basically what you have right now. In the toilet.
Calling it storage is a kind.
Yes.
I would vote no, because then on the upper floors that translates to square footage, and we've talked about repurposing over the years, and if we get it done now, we create that open floor structure for future rehabilitations.
Yep.
And to get it out later will cost a lot more than $50,000.
Yep.
I wouldn't do
You'll
this.
never take it out
The
later.
cost per square foot is reasonable to get space that you need.
Yeah.
So that's a no.
So that's a no. And the last thing we have is just do the shrubs and trees as an alternate. So that we'd pull it out now and stick it down on the alternate list. So.
Yeah, you just do lawn and mulch beds, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a lot of shrubs and trees, I don't think, because you're in fairly good shape, and the site is the green part of the site is fairly limited.
If you're going to have that as an alternate, you may want that as alternate number 1, because if we do the ribbon cutting and you don't have any shrubs or trees around the building,
that'll be sad day.
It'll look a little bare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a question.
I have to say, we were looking hard for anything that we could find, because there just isn't a lot of fluff in this. You know, we've tried to keep it pretty basic from the beginning. So
I'm relieved. I thought you were going to propose changing rooms and stuff like that.
No.
Back the old VE from way back when.
No.
So can we take the generator out and make the selectmen make a decision on that and just have a nicer number here?
Sure.
What do you mean take out the generator?
The upgrade.
Don't add a generator. Have the selectmen direct us to do that. Do it.
No generator at all, or
no generator upgrade.
No generator upgrade. Yeah.
The 100,000.
Yeah.
Messiah, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just spoke to Chris briefly, and I think the intent is to have a whole building generator.
Okay. So if we keep the generator, I roughly counted about 67. So now we're minus 67,000 or so.
You said,
oh, you got to make the generator 120. Did you do that?
I did.
Okay.
And
so what was the net again? I missed that. 67.
Approximately minus 67,000. Yeah, instead of 250. Sorry.
And that includes the
I'll
shrubs.
double check, make sure I'm not lying.
So the acoustics right now would be like in this design without this added 20 grand would be like they are now, maybe?
For the acoustical treatment in the
there aren't any soft surfaces, absorptive surfaces.
Yeah, so that's really just a placeholder, because we don't know what a Syntec is going to come back and recommend. So
does anyone have a problem with the acoustics there now?
So you just authorized a Syntec to do this study.
Yeah, I know.
And make recommendations for what we should do. So that hasn't happened yet.
So Josiah, I think the challenge is when we talk about how we can build out that space to better utilize it in the future. We had spoken to many groups, and they said the acoustics are terrible in there, and they wouldn't perform. And
okay, I've been to things there and I haven't noticed. So maybe I'm deaf, but yeah, that's fine.
I got a couple things I just want to touch base on before we actually lock down this $67,000 number, or And I brought up earlier, there was a mention of doing something to the barn storage building. Is that in or out?
I don't know.
Because right now it's just existing to remain.
Yeah, we're not doing anything.
Okay, so that's what we're doing. Nothing.
Well, I know that's what Stu said, but what do you guys say?
So I don't think there's a plan right now. We have no plan.
Okay.
We don't know what we're going to do with that building. Obviously, it's going to stay there, but we don't know.
Okay, so right now we're not including this as part of this. The barn as part of the project.
Correct.
Okay.
No, but I did happen to notice that on the drawings we didn't have any power to the barn, and my guess is that if we're going to tear the building up and rip the building down, that we're going to lose power to it. We should plan at a minimum to restore power to that structure.
Okay.
I think maybe the thought was when at least in the estimate where it says existing to remain means it's existing to remain, including its utilities. But you're right. It's gonna have to be looked at to make sure it is on the EC's scope. That if he's changing panels, he's gonna have to save that circuit.
And we're excavating and ripping up the site there.
Yeah.
Probably any conduit and pathway that exists is going to get impacted.
Well, if we tell them not to impact it, you know.
But we're taking the building away it's connected to.
I know.
You're being nice to say it's in conduit too, Mark. It's probably direct buried.
All I'm saying is, that's a simple thing we should make sure we include is getting that building repowered.
Yeah, I agreed.
Would it need to be kept powered during construction, or can it be just repowered?
No.
Well, does it? I don't remember. I was only in it once. It doesn't have heat in it, correct? So there's nothing that can freeze up?
As of today, there's no heat in that building.
It's electricity only, no gas, no water.
Okay.
And I think the power for the car chargers come out of there too.
And those are also supposed to remain, which Bill and I talked a little bit about. We'll tell them to protect them, or maybe we might have to have them remove and reset because of the site work that's going on around it. So if they're being fed from the barn, we need to show that that's where they're being fed from. Then I thought we may have talked about it at one time, but did we have any thoughts on whether the toilet rooms should get automatic door operators or just the entry doors to the building? Have there been any issues in town hall with people being having troubles getting in and out of the toilet rooms? Because a lot of buildings are going to the push button system.
Could we do one, or is that we do one of them being pushed?
Right now, we just have the entry doors on the push buttons, and it's
no. I mean, can we do one bathroom and not all of them that way?
You could. I just wanted to bring it up now because it's expensive to begin with, and if we decide to do it during construction, it's even more expensive.
You're not talking about ADA or handicap bath.
I don't think we've ever done it before, but you certainly could. But it probably costs like $5,000 or so a piece, doesn't it?
I'd be up more around $7,000, but I've been seeing a lot of buildings that get completed and there's complaints and they retrofit it after the fact. So we're doing a project now, and they're incorporating them now during construction to not to every single toilet, but to certain ones. At least one on each floor. So
I would do. I meant one on each floor. Not so you just have a sign that says power assist toilet or something like that.
Right.
Power assist door.
Sorry, Josiah. One on each floor. Does that mean on the first floor, for example, for auditorium you have one, and for the new addition you have one?
Sure.
No. Just one.
The auditorium has like 5 bathroom doors.
think there's six. I think.
We can have one, I think, right?
Yep.
Have a
So
little
one
sign
there
that-
and one in the new edition.
All right, I'm sorry I'm adding stuff, but
Well, I think as the town gets older, which it is, I think that's a good idea myself.
well, I know, code has a certain amount of pull, pounds per pull, but some people just still can't open the door. Also, we noted that we're probably going to need bollards around the transformer and the gas meter if we have one, and the generator. And we didn't have those, so those are going to be added in.
By the way, I didn't hear anyone agree with me on the power assist. I don't want to like steamroll it.
I thought we were good with.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Josiah. That makes sense.
Okay.
That's a compromise. Just not doing it at all or doing every one. Yeah. I agree with that.
And then another one I had noted with Phil was, adding a gutter and downspout and getting rid of the drip maintenance edge.
I thought that was strange to have all the water directed down along the side of the foundation wall when we were reviewing it as well. Long-term chances of that being a problem are high.
Right.
Are you talking about not using a gutter? Is that what you said?
I think there should be gutters on every.
I'm putting gutters in there and getting rid of the drip strip.
So you're talking about at the new edition.
Yeah, I noted on page 23 it has addition. Yeah, the new edition drip/maintenance edge.
And what do we have now? Sorry for.
It's basically a big giant gravel pit that the water goes down and goes to a pipe underneath the perimeter drain.
But is that
But
what's
it comes off?
But is that what's
I just saw
currently-
2 feet something off. That's not going to damage the footing foundation on it.
Yeah,
I'm not thinking of damaging the foundation, Josiah. I just think at some point it's going to get clogged and not maintained, and then water's just going to build up up against the foundation and go into the building and create moisture in the building.
I would be just as concerned with the gutters on the roof as I would be with a French drain on the ground.
I mean, there's probably more maintenance with the gutters themselves. So what do we currently have on Old Town Hall in the annex? Gutters or overhangs?
Gutters and downspouts. And there's also a concern with facilities with ice dams without gutters sheeting off and falling.
Ice dams without gutters?
Yes.
Usually the issue is ice dams damaging gutters.
Yeah, ripping them off.
We have situations in town on some of the buildings that don't have gutters, and it'll just build up on the edge, and then the big icicles form and fall.
Well, we shouldn't have any ice dam issues the way the building's being insulated.
We won't have any ice dam issues.
So this is a cross gable. The addition is a cross gable, which means it's mostly the gutters would be in the corners, correct? And not much of them, right? If you look at the roof plan, where you'd have
you're right. It's mostly a cross gable. So we're letting the water come off the roof and go down onto the ground and collect it at the ground.
So you would have.
So. Unfortunately, this doesn't have annotate, so I can't draw. I'm sure you do that on purpose, but you're drawing what I would be drawing.
Yep. So I think the one.
So the whole broad face on the front, the main center space on the side, the main broad space on the back, are all gutterless facades.
Yes, they're all gables.
Yes. The gutters would be here. Hold on.
So do we have on Old Town Hall, you said we have gutters now. So will that, is Old Town Hall not in question, or is that getting gutters either way?
Yeah, I think we're only talking about the new building, I think.
Okay.
Just the new, yeah.
I had a question
On
about where they tie into on the far side, but that's a different question.
where you're drawing now, the left side, but the stuff would just fall into an unused area, right?
Yes.
Except for the egress door. But
This is where the gutters would be.
so that would be yeah, those are just a question, safety question, I guess. I mean, 2'6" drop, you know, from the wall is a lot of space. So the rain is not going to go against the facade. It's just going to be down at the concrete foundation, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty sizable overhang.
Yeah, that's not going to hit the wall.
It wasn't a concern with hitting the wall. It was the water being forced up against the foundation wall. We don't have the best draining soils in town and locations, and having water right there up against the foundation. If the perimeter drain gets clogged, we wouldn't see it. We see gutters get clogged. You're not going to see a perimeter drain get clogged if it does. That's just a comment from facilities. Take it or leave it.
The drip strip was estimated at $11,600.
Gutters.
Probably on the landscape drawing somewhere.
Yeah.
Water. It's somewhere, yeah. I think it's on the. Not sure. Anyway, it is along the perimeter. So do you want to keep the drain?
Well, this isn't even on that list.
No.
Yeah. And it's probably an add to add the gutters in, I would guess.
I would imagine so.
Right. I'm not saying it's I'm just saying what was being carried will offset somewhat, yeah. But it's more like, I just want to make sure that the town knew what the intent was.
Jason, was it the facilities team that said to add gutters?
Yes.
Then we should add gutters.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to ignore them unless we had a really good reason and we could explain it to them.
Right.
Which is possible.
And then can I ask a question about gutters while we're on the topic? We had a meeting, maybe our last meeting, and we said we can't have aluminum gutters on the building, right? But there are aluminum gutters on the building now. So who do we talk to about, where do we go? Why do we think we can't have them? I guess is the question.
Because when we went the last time, when we were doing the roof project, to Cohasset Common Historic District Commission, aluminum, I know we're not adherent to it necessarily, but they don't allow aluminum gutters in the historic district.
But they're on the building now.
Because technically town hall is exempt from complying with it. It's a totally separate question.
So we should meet with them soon.
Yes, we should meet with the historic district, I think, as soon as possible.
Okay, so that should be our next meeting.
Yeah, I think we were heading towards the middle of January with that. We needed some of these questions in front of us to discuss with them. So we have some now.
So if it wasn't aluminum gutter, it would be a cedar gutter?
No, we proposed last time a copper.
Copper?
And then Stu was saying last time to do the one with that gray tint to it or whatever.
Yeah, I have the Freedom Gray. It's a coated.
Coated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's turn coated or something?
But that's going to look.
Coated gutter.
That's not going to look good.
So you could do what we did on the church, was put beautiful copper gutters on and then paint them white.
Like
I guess it fools people from stealing them.
Sounds like a great time to have an overhang.
If they're painted, maybe aluminum, pre-finished aluminum would be easy. I don't know if.
So
And
yeah,
they also, the downspouts have to be copper too. They won't, the aluminum's technically not to code in the district either.
Yeah. So this is also a detail problem. When you have a pediment on one side and you're putting a gutter on the other side, you have to bring everything together at the corner and make it look right.
Yeah.
It's so sometimes we've done this and we just give up, and what we do is we do a half round gutter and it looks like it's been added to a building that's been classically detailed. But putting gutters on a classically detailed building like this, it's just tough. We might be able to build the gutter in. We have a fairly simple fascia up there. We might be able to find a way of kind of putting it behind that fascia, but we need to, if we're going to do gutters, we're going to have to go back and rethink that just a little bit.
So would the civil engineer have any comment on the fact that we've got a big overhang and we're draining it down below in an acceptable way and have more credibility than other people being civil engineers?
We could certainly ask them.
Yeah, we can ask.
I can tell you,
two civil engineers did comment on that, Josiah, myself and Brian Joyce.
Yeah.
So we are civil engineers on staff that weren't a big fan of those under drains.
Hey guys, I got to take off. Mark and Michelle can handle the meeting from here. You guys have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you after the new year.
Yay.
Bye,
You
Phil.
too.
Thanks,
Christmas
you
to
too.
you, Phil.
Thank you.
Phil.
Okay, so what's the next item? We're not going to make a decision on gutters
Did
tonight.
you have another one?
I think that was it.
So we
Then-
also, so
Then you have GDD stuff.
All right.
Yes, of which they didn't put any dollar numbers on. So,
No.
and in general,
That's why my note said Jason to review.
Yep.
yeah, I would say we should just take a look at this. In general, this is just sort of downgrading everything, you know. Aluminum conductors, taking off, disconnecting things from the building management system. So
Number one basically looks like reducing number of zones.
yeah, to me, I looked at this and I didn't think that any of these looked all that compelling, but and without seeing some numbers next to them, I wasn't quite sure how to.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I think some
so-
of these delete meter things are relatively small, maybe 1,500, 2,000, just based on another project that they sort of brought up the same type of things.
Yes.
I mean, of course they add up, but it would be good to have a little bit of order of magnitude.
But everything here really downgrades the HVAC system and the electrical system.
Yeah, I wouldn't do one of these without a really hefty price. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, under the electrical, number 5, the ring and string in lieu of conduit. That seems like a pretty reasonable. I mean, again, we'd want to see the dollars, but that seems that's nothing earth shattering there. I don't think we're giving up on any quality.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It is interesting to note that the number 6, they were noting a 200 kVA where our estimate has 150, but
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So should we wait to discuss this until we have some figures in front of us?
Yeah, I'm not sure what low energy cable for fire alarm. I'm not really. That's new to me. Number 3 under electrical.
yeah, let me see if I might have seen that one before too. Hold on. I think you're right, Michelle. I mean, we should get something from them on cost based on this project.
Okay, was there anything else, Steve, that you had on your list?
I did not.
Okay. So for add alternates, I think most of these are basically, we already talked about.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go over it. This is just.
The one thing we didn't talk is the window restoration in lieu of replacement windows.
This is an issue we keep covering it. I think it's mainly an issue that we need to talk with your historic district about, because if we're using community preservation funds, I am concerned that your HDC is going to want to see window restoration instead of replacement.
You should plan on using CPC money for the old town hall.
Yeah, and yes, we are. And my concern is that if we are using CPC money, we will need to do the window restoration instead of replacement. I want to make sure that we won't run afoul of your historic district or your when the goal is to restore the building and then do replacement windows.
Yeah, understand.
So restoration, you put a storm on the inside or something?
No, this would be taking the windows and rebuilding them and making them work again and be more energy efficient.
And they would put the storms outside, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's probably $90,000 more than the replacement option. But
that's an ad. I'm sorry.
But it keeps
this is an ad.
Wait a minute. How does that make sense?
Yeah, it keeps.
I know, it's an ad alternate.
It keeps the historic fabric intact instead of replacing with something new. So.
But I always thought that energy savings trumped historic.
I hope we get a better contractor than the last time, because those windows were restored less than 2 decades ago, and they're falling apart again. So,
do you know who the restorer was?
No, before my time here.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
That's a lot of alternates. This is a shopping list, or you think you just have that many alternates?
Oh, I think we probably want to conceal this back a little, and we've already eliminated some of these things.
Oh yeah, so sorry.
It's like adding the granite foundation, right? Well, you decided not to do that as a deduct, so a lot of these things are going to come out.
And the granite stairs and sidewalls.
Yeah, all that stuff. So that needs to be updated.
Yes. Not yeah, so just these 4 then.
I mean, we might come up with something else, but for now, we don't want to have a lot of alternates anyways.
No, you really don't want to have more than about, 3 would be good. Yeah. But you start having 5 or 6 and it's too many.
Yeah, that's too much.
Okay.
Can I beg your indulgence? I'm hungry, but can you go to the reflected ceiling plan of the basement one more time and say what you propose for savings versus keeping insofar as the grid?
Reflected ceiling. 1 second. Give me a second.
And just, I guess, while you're navigating there, in the old town hall, I noticed that we're not really doing anything with the basement floor.
That's right. That's right.
So is everybody on board with that? We're not leveling it. We're not fixing it. Just for alignment of expectations. I'm not saying we need to. I'm just for alignment of expectations that floor that's kind of all over the place. We're not putting any coating on it.
The existing, you mean this floor?
The existing, yeah.
So the only area where we have to do something is where the air handling unit is going, but other than that, we're not touching it. We would try not to.
Michelle, Jason, does that seem like, are you guys okay with that? Is there any feel that we need to?
When we talk about flexibility of space, you're cutting down on flexibility of space long term. I mean, you're never doing this again. So,
well, the existing basement slab is fairly thin. It's really probably a rodent prevention slab, judging by the looks of it. And if we were, I don't know, we would have to Stu, what do you think? Hand excavate the whole basement to replace the slab?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can get a machine in there easily.
No, it's the current ceiling is 6'8" or so, 6'9" in places.
So you might be able to take the cap off of a mini, but then the bucket isn't that big. So,
is there any option to put some sort of coating on there just for cleanliness to
put a dust coating?
Pretty much, just so you can clean it. I mean, it's otherwise it becomes especially if we have an air handling unit down there. It
would have to be cleaned and then sealed with some product, roll on or spray on.
Yeah, it's just we're putting some kind of coating over a slab that we're not so confident in the structure. Yeah. So, if we do that, we're likely to have cracking and whatever we put over and all that. I mean, we could certainly do it, but that's the challenge.
I would have to expect contractor to come back and say, you really should replace this slab if you want to finish it, to be honest.
Oh, they're going to say a lot of things.
That's for sure.
They all have suggestions.
But yeah, Josiah, to answer your question, what we were proposing not to include was this ceiling. Sorry, it's taking a while. Probably this ceiling because it's storage, and this portion of this ceiling that's kind of like beyond there, and that's about it. So it would only keep these 3 offices and the corridor.
So it's occupied space has ceilings. Flex spaces.
The offices would be with ceiling, and the corridor just because it's
And that saves. What was the savings again?
50, I believe.
So you're not going to put a ceiling. You're not putting a ceiling in the IT room. The suggestion?
No.
So I guess now is as good a time as any to tell you that flex space. I think we have 3 employees that are going to end up in that flex space. So we're adding headcount, and this is the challenge, right? We're trying to save so much square footage so we can keep the price down. And as we talk about building a building for the future, what's happening already is we're going to be using a lot of our space that's meant for the future now. So that flex space is going to be offices.
Yeah, it's Josiah, it's closer to 12,000, not 15. I used the numbers.
Well, I was just curious, but now that you're going to put people in those spaces,
you got to put a ceiling in.
Yeah.
So that's off the list now too.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have flooring going in those rooms? I hope.
Yes, we do.
I hope so.
I believe it's VCT, I believe, at the moment. There is no floor in mechanical, electrical, and storage room, in machine room. That would just be painted concrete, essentially.
We don't have any plans of putting anyone there yet.
Those are jam-packed with equipment, I believe. So storage room not, but the other places are.
And the raised floor in the data room, that is a dead issue, correct?
Last time it was decided not to do it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I talked to Ron about it. He was fine.
Okay, just making sure.
And I think we'll still do no ceiling in the MDF room though. Might be easier for them.
Well, yeah, I think you probably should put one in there and just finish the basement up completely.
The data room?
In the data room, yeah.
For those, can you pull up that basement plan if you have it back there on the?
1 second.
And while you're doing, so those changing rooms that are in the back of Old Town Hall, would it be with relative ease to kind of have that as a pair of like wellness rooms or something? I mean, they're already there. The square footage already exists. They're not going to be in use for the majority of the time. Can we just kind of have it as a shared use there in terms of maybe putting a I don't know, a chair and a refrigerator in each of those?
There's already sinks, right, Jason, in those rooms?
There's bathrooms in the two. I think the proposed there's two bathrooms in the corner.
There's 2 bathrooms.
So we could put a sink in the changing room?
Sinks in 1 in each?
I think we just need 1 in 1. A sink in 1 changing room.
If this is ever going to be deemed a shelter, don't you need a shower facility or 2?
Yes.
For overnight?
How hard would it be to put a shower in those bathrooms?
Yeah.
The ceiling in these rooms is about 7 feet. So I don't think we would be able to fit the shower.
So there's not room for a shower in there. Didn't we talk about a shower long time ago? Because
we did. We talked about it, then we stopped talking about it. And then as we do, we started talking about it again.
Are those toilet rooms fully tiled or just on the floor?
They would be tiled on the floor and then tiled, I think we're showing 5 feet up.
Because I know one time on another project, we talked about instead of putting the shower in there, putting the shower head and faucets in on the tile wall, and essentially the entire room becomes the shower, because it was a space issue, just to sort of meet that requirement for a shelter.
So what if we don't meet the requirement for a shelter?
But you need a floor drain.
Yeah, it just.
We have floor drains in all of them, but the tile goes up right now only about 5 feet.
Yeah, you'd have to go up to the ceiling. Again, not trying to add stuff, but it depends on what I mean, again, like everybody says, now's the time to do this if you wanna do it.
I mean, I don't know other people's personal. Even if I was in a dire situation, I think I'd rather just err on the side of not taking a shower than going to town hall to taking a shower. but that is simply just me.
Well, no, I understood, but it's just to, I guess, to qualify, you have to have certain things in the
building. And I get that, and I respect that. I think we would then be. To the contrary, I think we would then be judged by the community as to why we did this, and that this was something that was over and above the top and wasn't needed. And again, it's a perception there, regardless of the dollars at stake here. I think it becomes a better perception.
But the answer is, if the select board wants it to be a shelter, then this is what we have to do.
I don't think anybody asked for it to be a shelter. I don't think that's what we're driving here towards.
I thought the whole building generator was
charging station. Charging station is a different qualification. It allows people to come in there, get warm. It's not a shelter. People aren't going to be sleeping there. It's a charging station. People can repower their devices, similar to the senior center.
Okay.
But I think, just the fact that we have those changing rooms, if we can just throw in like an under-counter fridge and at least one of them, and a chair, and just call it a wellness room, I think is a huge win.
Mark, do you need a sink in your wellness room?
I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's all what you want to provide. But, I would think I would even give up one of those bathrooms for one of those. I mean, or flip the bathroom around so that the water is on a wet wall there, that it's shared, and you do just put in a sink in that one of those changing rooms, just a hand sink.
Yeah.
Nothing extravagant. You know, very simple. And you know, if a nursing mother needed to go in there, if somebody with insulin needed to go in there and have some privacy or something of that nature, that they're not subjected to a bathroom in the main corridors.
So do you want us to add a sink in one room?
I think it would, yes. I think you should add a sink in one room.
And an under-counter fridge.
There is no counter there right now. So should we add a counter as well?
I would say with whatever is the easiest way and the most logical way to get a small refrigerator in there.
Well, just put an under-counter refrigerator in the room, just like a college would.
That's
fine. Doesn't need to go under a counter.
Nope. So just a small refrigerator, okay.
Yep. And then make sure that the doors don't have glass in them.
Yep.
For the privacy aspect of it. And we have windows.
Which I would assume a changing room wouldn't.
Have to frost the windows. Well, who knows? I don't remember what's in there.
Well, I would assume if we're making it a changing room, we're not going to have clear glass.
True. True. Good to check, though.
This is true.
Okay. Is there anything else, Steve or Michelle?
So I do have, yes, not for now though. So we did go through this set of plans and we do have some recommendations that I will just send in an email.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
It's not worth, they're minor.
Okay.
So I kind of got through the first handful of pages. So I'll just put that in. I still have to finish. So maybe by the end of the Christmas week, maybe I'll use some of my Christmas vacation for such exciting activity.
Okay.
Michelle, did you distribute the draft schedule?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Okay, so everybody's seen that. All right. I thought so based on our earlier conversation, but I wasn't sure. So we don't need to go over that in any kind of detail. Is there any questions on that?
I don't know if anyone had any.
You want me to bring it up?
Sure. Oh, do you not have shared screen? Hang on.
I did, but for some reason my computer just went black.
Oh.
When I was looking for files. I can hear you, but I can't see anything now.
All right, so
maybe we'll skip that.
Yeah, so I guess if anyone has any questions about the schedule, email me. I'll share it and we'll do it that way. But Steve, you and I need to work offline about the temporary town hall space because that's going to be here before we know it. And
I gave you a schedule for that. It's all set, right?
Yeah, I saw your schedule.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's lots of schedules like that.
No problem.
Okay. Anything else?
Do we have to vote ourselves off, or since Phil's not here, we can just go?
I don't know. I think Mark's in charge.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. We'll
Have a good night.
Merry
Good
Christmas.
night.
Happy holidays.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
See you all next year. Take care and be safe.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye.
Bye.